Okay, next up, the big one. So a lot of you wanted this, so thanks for asking for it. Hopefully I'll do it justice. So what can you do to try and reduce your chances of having back injuries? Or if you've got back injuries already, we're not going to magically cure them, but what do you need to do in your golf game to try and manage that injury itself? So I've done a good bit of research. There's loads to this point. I'm going to try and break it down to a few simple steps. So first of all, what are we talking about in terms of a golf injury? When you look at some of the research, a common injury site in golfers is lower back pain. Now, this lower back pain is commonly cited, but they don't really know the cause for it. So we can't really say, is it sort of a build-up over time of poor mechanics, lots of loading, and that causes an injury? Or is it one just acute injury? They do something and it's torn. We don't have an answer to that. What the research sort of suggests is that, well, you could have an acute injury and that could cause damage. Or it could be this build-up over time that then means that when you do a movement, all of a sudden there's a ping and that's it. The type of injuries that you could get in terms of lower back injuries in golf, there's lots of soft tissue ones, so a muscular pull, some sort of ligament and tendon damage are really common. The more serious ones are some sort of compression on your discs, which you then start to get some nerve impingements and shooting pains and other bits. None of them ideal, really. So what can you do to try and reduce the chance of this happening? Let's all play golf for as long as possible and stay healthy. Point one. First thing is to really understand what the golf swing is about. So we're looking at rotation. And to understand where that rotation comes from, you've just got to think a little bit deeper around it. So the three main points where you rotate in your golf swing are your right hip, your left hip, and your thoracic spine. So they're the three areas that actually cause this rotation in the golf swing. Now, if you have a limitation in those areas, in one of those three, you tend to find that your lower spine, your lumbar spine, tries to make up for it and tries to twist. And it's not really good at that. That's not what it's designed for. So the first point to think about is that, am I trying to rotate from those areas? And have I got any issues in those areas that may be causing me to put more strain on my lower back? That's the first point. Second point from here is another thing to do with golfing technique. So within your golfing technique, one of the critical points you can all do, everyone is really capable of, is having a good posture at setup and trying to maintain this through our golf swing. What we mean by good posture is having your spine in a neutral position. So really we're looking for a little curve in the base of your spine, that's called your primary curve. And then higher up just towards your neck, there should be another slightly bigger curve in your spine, and that's called your secondary curve. Now, when we swing a golf club, we really want our spine in this neutral position because it allows all of the vertebrae to rotate as freely as possible. So that's sort of the next point on that. And then the last point to do with technique itself is really looking at, we call it lateral lumbar flexion. So as you go into your downswing, you'll remember a picture of Jack Nicklaus as he'd slide his hips forward. Well, what that is doing is actually the lumbar spine is actually flexing to the side. And that really does put a lot of unwanted load onto our lower back. So through the golf swing, if you look at the modern golf swing, guys tend to stay a lot more upright. They don't tend to have so much slide. These mechanics in the downswing are certainly better for preserving our lower back as long as possible. Okay, then if we go on to things such as practice, we've got load. So one of the areas which could be causing these injuries is just having so much load over a period of time going through our lower back and our joints and our muscles. So do think about how often you're hitting a large volume of golf balls, or how many rounds you're playing in a short period of time. I'm not going to say that loads of golf is going to make it worse, but one thing that we know from some research in other sports, such as rugby over in the UK and looking at football and other bits and bobs, is changes in load. So sharp changes in load do cause injury. So if you go from playing once a week and all of a sudden you're hitting 500 balls a day and you're playing 5 times a week, you're likely to get injured. You really are. So if you're going to have these changes, just make sure that it's a gradual progression from low load up to a higher load or training volume. Okay, and then lastly, if you've got those points in place, what can you do off the golf course? So we will move back onto TPI because it's a good resource. What exercises can you do to try and maintain your health and fitness with golf? So to start off with, we'll go back to that first point. Have a good range of motion in both hips, so your internal external rotation, your left hip, your right hip, and your thoracic spine. They all want to be quite mobile. So that's point one, and I've put some videos down below that you can check out, and hopefully they'll give you a good start point. Point two from here is all of your core muscles and anything that's going to stabilize your pelvis and your spine during the golf swing. Make sure that you do some conditioning for them. Again, I'll put some videos below and you can check them out. That's sort of your second stage of preventative exercise. Then thirdly, it's a contentious point in golf, but strength. So high levels of strength really do reduce the chances of injury. As long as you don't do something stupid and injure yourself whilst doing the exercises. If we can have a high level of strength in our muscles, they tend to be able to dissipate forces better. They tend to reduce our chances of having these injuries, particularly soft tissue injuries. So step one is make sure you get these range of motions in good order. Step two is make sure you've got doing some functional exercises. And then step three on top of that is making sure you've got a balance of strength between your left and your right side. So in golf, we tend to get very asymmetrical. We tend to be very strong and tight on one side and much weaker, but have a lot greater range of motion on the other side. It's a good idea to try and balance it up to some degree. So hopefully that's useful for you. There's a lot of information for you to go and unpack. Check out the link below and get in touch if you've got any other questions.